holds us back in allowing ourselves to rest, and why is rest typically associated with a negative connotation? Growing up in a very tiger parenting family household where you couldn't rest. Rest meant laziness. Rest meant you weren't doing enough. Rest meant you weren't productive. Rest meant you weren't trying your hardest. Rest meant you weren't contributing. I have seen a lot of my family members go through and succumb to their own diseases because they didn't listen to their bodies. And they felt guilty from taking a break, from saying no. They kept pushing and pushing. What is the point of all of this if at the end of it you're burnt out, you're emotionally disconnected, you're feeling isolated, or you're feeling resentful at the end of it? What did we actually accomplish? Hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again, and enjoy. Welcome to another episode of The Brave Table. I'm your host, Dr. Neeta, and this is your destination, your oasis to be all things just a little bit more brave, and you've come to the right place because today we are braving. Why is it so hard for us to prioritize rest? And what comes up when we are in the throes of life, but we are judging ourselves or we are struggling to rest? Why do we feel guilty about it? And before I get into that, I am picking our card for today. Ooh, okay. Actually, this is not oh, here it is. Okay. Ooh, oh, this is a great one for this episode. I know it is important to work. This is our That Suck Now What affirmation cards. Yet I do not revolve my life around it. I am allowed to play and have fun. So what a beautiful reminder as we open up. Why is it hard to rest? So this is your reminder to let's play more. Let's have fun. And in the spirit of getting into the fullness and the expansiveness of the holiday season, I know that there's a lot of movement, and I want to just take a moment to really speak to what holds us back in allowing ourselves to rest, and why is rest typically associated with a negative connotation. And I don't know about you, but growing up in a very tiger parenting family household where you couldn't rest. Rest meant laziness. Rest meant you weren't doing enough. Rest meant you weren't productive. Rest meant you weren't trying your hardest. Rest meant you weren't contributing. And as I share this, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you are driving around and listening to this or walking around and listening to this, what comes up for you as I share that? Do you also equate rest with laziness? And for so many years, I fought that, and I struggled with the notion of resting. And it wasn't evident until I would see so many of my elder family members succumb to different medical diseases. As you know, that's a very big part of my story. For those of you who are just joining or watching this for the very first time, that has been my journey. I have seen a lot of my family members go through and succumb to their own diseases because they didn't listen to their bodies. And they felt guilty from taking a break. They felt guilty from saying no. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And there's this beautiful doctor that we just had on the Brave Table who I think you're really going to love her episode. Her name is Dr. Avanti Singh. And she is just a beautiful breath of light. She is a ER doctor now, trained in Ayurveda and practices Ayurveda medicine. She's been endorsed by Gwyneth Paltrow, among others, and she's written 2 books. And one is that she's going to be on the Brave Table on is her longevity book. And when she was on the show, we talked about her diagnosis with breast cancer. And it was so evident, and you'll hear the rest of her story when we release the episode. And for those of you watching this later, I will link the episode in the show notes. But I thought it was such a beautiful reminder because she had reached every single pinnacle of success. And she said she kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and she kept on going, climbing every single mountain that she could. And she had the 2 kids, she had the beautiful home, she had all of the things. She was the one that everybody went to. She was the one that was the one lauded for her work. And all of a sudden she gets this diagnosis when she's eating the right foods, saying the right things to her friends and family, but she herself wasn't really taking her own medicine. And I'm not going to reveal everything else that we talked about because you'll have to tune into her episode. But it brings me to this idea of, as women who are either the eldest or they are carrying the torch for their families, and around the holidays, you see these memes of the moms doing all of the things, and they are the ones doing the Christmas decorations and running around and doing the Christmas presents, or they were doing the Diwali lights, and they were doing all of the Diwali gifts, and they were doing all of the decor inside and outside, organizing the friends and the people and the play dates and everything that comes around this time of year is kind of exhausting. I mean, just saying it is getting me really exhausted right now. And the fact that we push and push and push and push, because what is our excuse? For the sake of our kids. Oh, but I just want for them to have this beautiful Christmas. I just want them to have this beautiful experience. And of course, we all want this for our children, but at what expense? And Dr. Avanti's episode really reminded me of what is the point of all of this if at the end of it you're burnt out, you're emotionally disconnected, you're feeling isolated, you're feeling alone, or you're feeling resentful at the end of it? What did we actually accomplish? And so I'm just feeling in this season of how can we savor the slow when we are in a world that wants us to move so fast? And I want to leave this here with you today because I think we have to first unpack what our preconceived notions are about rest. I've shared with you some of mine. I think you may have some of yours. And for me, how I have been able to rewire my brain and retrain my brain is to first, number one, is have compassion for yourself. The little girl who worked so hard, and I used to judge people who would take a day off. I would say, oh my gosh, you're so lazy. Look at that person just sitting on the couch. And it was only because these were the things that I heard when I was growing up. I heard my aunt say that to me. I would get such an emotional response when my aunts would come in the room and I would like have that jolt in my body and I would pretend like I'm fixing my bed or the ruffles on the sides of your bed, around your bed. I would like pretend I am fixing that so that it is perfect, for this ideal of perfection, so that they wouldn't say, Neeta, why are you in your room not studying? Oh, okay, because I'm air quotes cleaning right now, so that's okay. But you had to be moving and you had to be doing something. And honestly, that's how I even led very early on in the teams that I would have, in the businesses that I would have. And there is no sense of spaciousness. And what rest allows you to do in the spaciousness is it allows you to be creative. It allows you to ponder. It allows you to think. It allows you to dream. It allows you to be bored. And when we are allowing ourselves the spaciousness to think and to ponder and to be in awe, I look at my kids now, and when my kids say, Mama, I'm so bored, can I watch TV? Mama, I'm so bored, can I do an activity? And I'm like, no, let them be bored, because right now we've never been in a time more than now where we have all kinds of things to entertain us. Can we savor the slow of resting, doing nothing? Is that even possible? And as I'm sharing this, I'm even contemplating for myself. I'm like, is that even possible? in the back of my mind, I would think, oh my gosh, how would I be able to prioritize rest? I have so many things to do. I have such a long to-do list. There is absolutely no way. Can you imagine how many things I can get done? And in this process of savoring the slow, I'm also prioritizing and reverse engineering what would that look like to be bored for 2 minutes? What would it look like to be bored for 4 minutes? And then increasing my capacity for these feelings that are causing a lot of discomfort because I've never been given permission for that. And I share this with you because so many of you have commented on some of my stories and have shared that, yeah, I've been like that too. I definitely don't take a break. It's so hard. I penalize myself. I have so much guilt. I have so much shame. And it's only because we weren't given a model for resting. There was no model for that. I know none of my family could rest. There was no way. They had to put food on the table. There was no way they even thought of resting. The only time my family or my parents would rest would be maybe occasionally on a Sunday, and that too if we were going to church or Gurdwara or the temple, or if my dad was meditating and chanting in his pujas for 2 hours on a Sunday. That was when he was resting, or the occasional when we would watch football or a Bollywood movie. But it wasn't a practice of resting. And as I reflect now with my own children and even in reparenting myself, what were some of those things that still come up in those triggers of the laziness, or you have to be doing something or you're not productive, or you have so many things on your to-do list that there is absolutely no time to take a break because everything matters, because it's the amount of what you can get done. And just reflecting in this past year, I think I shared with many of you that I went to Chota Spensa, and it was a 7-day advanced long retreat, and I absolutely loved it. It was such a gift that I was able to do it with one of our best friends and my amazing husband. And for those 7 days, I couldn't believe it. We were able to go, especially, and with our children were staying at the same resort with us. And I was so nervous and worried and even anxious a little bit that I'm like, how am I going to try to be present for my kids and probably not get the best sleep because we're going to be up super early doing meditations at 4 a.m. Literally, one of the days we started at 4 a.m. The doors shut at 4, so you had to be up by 3 a.m. and you didn't get out until 10 p.m. It was nuts. And people ask, how crazy is that? Why are you meditating for that long? I wasn't able to really look at emails because you're not supposed to. You're literally taking the entire week off. And both my husband and I were like, it took so much mental load and surrender to say, okay, for a whole week, we're just going to be so present as possible because this is a gift. And we said in the beginning of the year that we would do something that would really elevate our relationship and us to this next level. And it's so different when you're doing this with 2,000 people. But to make an active choice to rest and whatever that means. And it was so powerful because in that time of the resting, of the meditating, of the allowing yourself to, as Dr. Joe calls it, be in the void. And when you're in the void, you're just tuning out. And when you're tuning out, you're in this very limitless space of possibilities. And of course, maybe you are in the space of having more appreciation for the things around you. You are savoring the slow, so you can slow down to really see and appreciate everything in your field, everything that has happened in the years, everything that has happened for you in the many lifetimes or the many seasons of life that you've had up until this point today. And from that place is a beautiful place where you can actually create. And some of the most profound things were happening and just coming out of the blue. For example, some of the things where I thought that I needed to spend a month in reorganizing, and it was going to take a really big chunk of my time of to-dos. All of these things after that event started falling into place. And so I started thinking, well, what if the things that we are so worried about, what if the things that we're so pushing so hard up against to make this work, to make that thing work, to make that relationship work, which I want to say some of those things do take the time it needs to take. But when you're pushing up against a strong current and you know that project is just not going to plan, but you're trying your best and you keep trying and you keep trying to force it, and it's just not working out, well, what if you just let go? What if you let go and see what happens? And that's exactly what I did. I stopped pushing, and automatically somebody texts me out of the blue and says, hey, you know that thing that you had told me about a few months ago, is that thing still available? Because I'd love to help you. I have more free time now, and I'd love to help you sort it. And I was just thinking in my head, okay, this is something that's so big that is on my mind. And all of a sudden, within the next few days, miracles like that started to show up, and people like that started to show up, and it was wild. And it brings me to this idea and hypothesis of, can we manifest more when we are allowing ourselves to rest? And can we first make peace with all of the judgments that we had and reprogramming that we had around this idea of resting? And once we are slowing down to the speed of life, can we actually be more efficient in our output because we have given ourselves the ability to rest? Meaning, is our productivity more because we have allowed ourselves to fully rest and take a break and take a mental break? And I think that's probably what a lot of the sages and what my friends at Dr. Joe Dispenza have been preaching for years around meditation, is because when we are tuning out and tuning into a frequency that we have everything that we need already, what's the push? Why are we pushing so hard? Where are we trying to get to? And so in this spirit of the busyness, and I know this sounds so theoretical, but I would love to invite you to think, how can I slow down so that I can savor some of these moments? Because if I am slowing down, what does it allow me to do? Is it allowing me to think even clearly or clearer? Is it allowing me to have more space to imagine something else? And maybe that something else is bigger, brighter, more bold, better than you could have ever imagined, just because you've let go of the fixation on control to try to do things a certain way? Is it because we have been able to rest our nervous system, rest all of the to-dos, and say, you know what, I'm going to pour into me right now. And so when I am fully filled in whatever I'm doing, then I'm just going to operate from my cup where it's completely filled and not judge myself on that thing. And so what I will leave with you is one of the action steps on this card that we started with. I know it's important to do work, yet I do not revolve my life around it. I'm allowed to play and have fun. And the action step on this card, and by the way, you can get these cards for a limited time at thatsuckednowwhat.com. Our shop is open for the holidays, and you can get 10% off just by using the code BRAVE. So I highly recommend it. These are so beautiful and they're so great. They're 52 card decks, and you can use this one affirmation for every week of the year, and that's how I design them. And each of the cards have a front, which is an affirmation, and a action step in the back. And you can get them at, and I'll link it in the show notes, but it's at thatsuckednowwhat.com, and just use code BRAVE for checkout for your 10% off. So the action step for this today is host yourself to a tea ceremony. Pour a cup of tea of your choosing. Maybe it's chai. Sip slowly. Focus on the simple act of savoring. Notice the aroma, the temperature, and the taste. Be fully present with your cup. As you savor the slow in the speed of life where we are all in, let me know in the comments how this sparked maybe a new dialogue, maybe a new ritual for yourself that you can hold on to when life gets a little bit messy and chaotic. And how are you reframing rest in this season? I would love for you to let us know either on the Brave Table, on Instagram, or Neeta Bhushan on Instagram, or right below here on YouTube if you're watching us, and if you're following us or listening to this on Spotify and or iTunes, go ahead and click the like button. That little button helps us grow the show more than you know. And if you're first time here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on all of the new episodes that come, and you can join our little community. Thank you so much for being here. As always, don't forget to be just a little bit more brave.